Hey guys, it's Adam. I want to take a moment and personally thank you for listening to our shows, for downloading our shows, and for sharing them with your friends. With your guys' support, we just moved the Twisted 10 into the threshold of the top 100 comedy shows in iTunes. It made it to number 99, granted, just barely crept in there. However, that's still monumental for us. Out of the tens of thousands of podcasts that are out there, that's one of the most difficult categories to breach into. Thank you very, very much for helping us to get there. If you haven't already done so, please go give us a 5-star rating and give us a review, a short little 1-line, 2-line review, letting us know that you enjoy the show. iTunes reviews are like podcast currency. It legitifies the show, it allows us to get better guests, and it allows our sponsors to really see that we're reaching the listeners that are out there. If you haven't done so yet, please go do it. We would greatly appreciate it. We've got a ton on the horizon from Dichotomy Media, a lot more on our YouTube channel, more Get Out Penny cartoons, all sorts of stuff. So please help us by giving us that 5-star rating and a little review. Thank you very much and enjoy the show.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All 3 engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You're listening to The Twisted 10, bringing you original and unique, host-created top 10 lists, recorded live in world-famous Cocoa Beach, Florida, with hosts Tach Van Sickle and Adam Poston.
All right, welcome to another episode of The Twisted 10. I am Adam, and Jay and Andrea, I'm not a host this week. I'm just saying. I'm off the hook. Again, I did mine last week, so I'm now off the hook.
You're off the hook for like a year.
Yeah, at least.
Wait, so does that mean it's my turn again?
Is it your turn?
I don't think so. I have nothing prepared. Yeah, Jay Alvarez, the Hispanic that's not prepared. Way to live a stereotype myself.
Hi, I'm Andrea Joy, and I am also not hosting this show.
So our hosts here in the studio can see on our big screen over on the other side of the room that we have a guest host this week. And joining us, and we're honored to have her, is Jen Briney with Congressional Dish podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun to host another show than my own with actual human beings interacting with me. It's going to be great.
Right. It's a weird concept. A lot of other podcasters don't, it's hard for some of them to grasp the concept that it's, do I just send you my MP3 file? You know, how does this work? I'm like, no, we interact with each other. It's an exchange. It's, you know, we like having guests come in studio in here, but to open it up wider, we do the Skype connections like we're doing with you. So thank you again. Thank you very, very much for coming on board. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about Congressional Dish and what that podcast is? I know it, but our listeners may not.
Yeah. So Congressional Dish, I started about 4.5 years ago because, well, long story short, I was paying attention to C-SPAN. I was like one of those 3 people that watches that in their free time. And I just saw shady things happening. And so I was paying attention more and more. And I was like, there's so much happening in Congress that actually affects me. And I don't even know where to find this information. And so after a long talk with my dad, who went into a career that was not all that fun, he was an accountant, he was like, I don't know what a podcast is or why anyone would want to listen to a podcast about Congress, but I'll support you in any way I can. So I started it like 4.5 years ago with the naive idea that I could read every bill that passed. So I was like, if Congress can read it, I can read it. And it turns out they don't read most of the bills. So I learned by doing, to tell you the truth. This was my podcast that I was just going to learn what was going on and tell people what I was finding. And so now that it's been so long, I've changed the structure a little bit, but really the basic idea is I'm a taxpayer. I'm not in either of the main 2 parties. I just want to do it. I just want to know what they're doing with my money and in my name. And that's still what I'm doing. So it's like whatever rabbit hole I choose to go down, that's what your next episode is about. And I still read obnoxious pieces of legislation, and I watch hearings, and I just share with you whatever I think needs to be shared, and mainly the stuff that's not covered in the mainstream. You know what I mean? Because like right now I could cover Jim Comey along with everyone else in the world, but there's also other things going on. So I kind of go for the stuff that I think is being hidden.
Oh, that's cool. That's a very unique angle to take. So you're not taking the things that are the obvious, easy targets that are out there. That's good.
Yeah, and I think it actually hurts the show. Really? Like conversation. But the people who have found Congressional Dish do seem to like it because whatever the big story is on TV, a lot of times that big story is covering up what they're actually doing in legislation, which is far more important and affects us all, especially financially in so many ways. And so, yeah, I'm happy to be doing the podcast, even though right now it is nothing but bad news. So,
so I listened to your last episode, which dealt with North Korea and some of the conflicts with the DMZ, with South Korea, North Korea, China, obviously the ties in with Russia and, everything else, and obviously Trump. And it was fascinating to me. You educated. I thought I knew a pretty good amount about politics and pretty good amount about the North Korea situation, but I learned a hell of a lot on that show. And I listened all the way to the very end, even with your credits to your listeners, your patrons, your donators, things like that. And I admire how you did that. You treated every single one of those people elegantly, and it made me want to donate too. It was an interesting perspective that you took on it, so that was kind of cool. But you did say something in that episode towards the end where you were frustrated. It sounded like you were on the fence about the podcast in general. I'm like, oh no, because you were glooming on it a little bit. I'm like, damn, you need reinforcement that you're doing a really good job, and without kissing your ass too much, I love that show, and you've got something that's really, really cool, and you're doing something good. But you can't read those bills until they're passed. I'm just saying. You don't know what's in the bill. Just pass it first, and then we'll tell you. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Well, and, I do have to, I'm a little bit, I'm tired right now. It's been a very high emotion 6 months since Trump took office. And a lot of people are lashing out because I didn't wholeheartedly support Hillary Clinton. Apparently that makes me a traitor to my gender or something crazy. I don't know.
How dare you?
But
are we sure she's
really
a woman?
Difficult. It really has. And just watching the way Congress is behaving, and it's just, I don't know. It's been rough on me emotionally, to be honest. And I'm going to keep going with the podcast, but am I at my peak motivation right now? No. And I think that's how it is with a lot of podcasters. We fall in and out of love with it. I think Amanda said that to you guys a few weeks ago. And right now I'm on a down slope, but it's starting to turn around just because, I don't know. It's my job.
We all ebb and flow, that's for sure. So out of the three of us, I consider myself somewhat politically knowledgeable. I wouldn't say very much, but a little bit. I've worked for government contracts since 2002, DOD, DOS, and now here at NASA. And I get myself at least attached to, that's my day job, not the podcast. The podcast doesn't pay those bills. I'm just saying. So the day job covers that. So I know a little bit about my specific areas of interest, like the $600 million extra dollars that NASA just got from this current administration. I was stoked to hear that, because I'm a fanboy of NASA, so that's good for me. But I don't know if I've ever asked Jay if he's political or not in here.
Yeah, actually, I have a very solid educational background in politics. I have watched the entire series of The West Wing. As well as House of Cards. So I feel myself particularly versed for this episode.
It's like an honorary doctorate for that, right?
Right. From University of Phoenix.
University of Netflix?
Yes. Yep, that's exactly where.
But here's the real test from what I've heard. Do you watch Veep?
Ooh. No, I'm behind on that. I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I'm behind on it, though.
You need to watch Veep.
All right, you know what it is? I can't get past, what's the guy? Her assistant. The one that was on Arrested Development.
Arrested Development.
Because I can't see him and not picture him in Army. Like that's all I got.
He still plays Buster. So you don't actually have to let that go. He's basically still Buster.
So he's Buster. He's like, okay, so these are my awards from Vice President. Okay, cool. Got it.
Yeah. No, you have to watch that one. And it's funny because people will write to me from Washington and they tell me it's more Veep than anything else. Which I don't think that's a good thing, but it doesn't exactly surprise me.
Andrea, what about you? Are you political in nature? I know personally, but our listeners may not. Do you have a knowledge in politics or?
Yeah, it's not enough.
Enough?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Tach is our other host that's not here tonight. He's actually he works for SpaceX, and they just launched, literally when we were doing our initial test phone calls with you tonight, SpaceX was launching one of their rockets. So he's up there supporting that mission tonight. So he's out of commission for us this evening. He wanted to be here very badly because he loves your podcast too. So he's missing out. So sorry, Tach.
Wow.
Sorry, buddy.
It's a good reason to miss the podcast. He's only, expanding human knowledge and exploration. It's like, you can do that instead of talking to me.
And I love how dismissive you are. Like, yeah, SpaceX is launching one of their rockets. Like, yeah, Timmy's playing with one of his toys again. That's
It is kind of cool. SpaceX, not to get too tied into this, but I'm kind of a fanboy of it. SpaceX launches their rockets, and a couple of them come back and land on the pads here at KSC at the Air Force Station side. Well, those are the reusable rockets that they can use over and over and over, and they're like drones that come and land. Well, it's very reminiscent of the space shuttle days because those things create two sonic booms that are heard for hundreds of miles in every direction. And we're so close here, when those booms hit, all of our windows and doors shake. It is just intense, and I love it. I love it every single time. It doesn't scare me anymore because I'm such a fanboy. I know when all the launches are, but I want to let our listeners know real quick for new listeners that may be coming to this podcast because of Jen. This podcast is a top 10 list podcast. The top 10 list is either done by one of our regular hosts, the four of us, or by a guest, like in Jen's case here. The list has to be something original or unique to you. So you can't go on like David Letterman's site and pull some of his top 10 lists and bring it to the show. It has to be something unique. Now, you can cite sources, obviously, like I was inspired by a BuzzFeed top 10 list or something else that you found on Wikipedia or whatever. You can cite them if you want to, not necessary. However, we want them to be original. And we occasionally allow guests to come on, more so regularly allow than as of late. We allow guests to come on like Jen and bring their own lists, and they take over the show for the entire hour, and that's what we're going to do tonight. So, Jen, are you ready to go? Are you good?
I think so.
All right. Well, we're turning over the proverbial keys to this car over to you for the rest of this episode. So this is Jen Briney's top 10 list. So let us know what your list is, and then it's all your show.
All right. So the list I went with, which probably won't surprise anyone who knows what I do for a living, is top 10 congressional scandals. But I chose to do 10 that are recent because when you look up, scandals in history, you hear about two men in powdered wigs, and it's like, who gives a shit about what they did? So I wanted to talk about things that are affecting us right now. So let's get started with number 10.
Yes.
Number 10.
See, she knows. She listens. She knows what to do with the numbers. That's awesome.
Yes. So number 10 actually has to do with Puerto Rico, which I've developed a bit of a fascination with in the last year because in 2016, Congress decided to legislate something for Puerto Rico, and I think it was pretty mean. So just a little bit of background. Puerto Rico it's an American colony. We have quite a few of these. I think we have 5 or 6. It depends on how you want to define it. But Puerto Rico is the one that is off of Florida's coast, about 1,000 miles. We got Puerto Rico in 1898. It was about 10 seconds after they became independent. We invaded and took them over. So that was very nice of us.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. The Spanish had said they could be independent, and they did that in the beginning of May. In the middle of May, we invaded, and they were ours. So they were independent for about a minute and a half. And so, yeah, we took over the island in 1898, and then in 1917, we did them a favor by making the Puerto Ricans U.S. citizens, and then immediately drafted them into World War I.
Oh.
So, but the moral of that story is that it's for 100 years now, Puerto Ricans have been U.S. citizens, but they're treated differently than the rest of us. So Puerto Ricans, they don't get to vote for president. They get one congressman in the House, but their congressman doesn't really get to vote. They get to vote in committees, but if their vote is the deciding vote, then it doesn't count and they have to re-vote. So
redheaded stepchild.
Oh, yeah, big time. It's actually really sad. And then they get no senators at all. So even though they're citizens like you and I, they're not treated like citizens. And then the way that Puerto Rico as an island has been treated by Congress has been relatively unfair. So more recently, in like the last 40 years or so, Puerto Rico was turned into a tax haven. So multinational corporations were allowed to go there. They would have to pay like no federal taxes, no state taxes to Puerto Rico. But then in 1996, Congress took that back. And so it really screwed over the island. There were two things that happened at once. First, the companies that were there just because it was a tax haven, some of them took off. And then the offshoring of jobs that happened to the rest of us, that happened to Puerto Rico too. And so what the government of Puerto Rico had to do was take out these loans from Wall Street. And they were loan sharky type loans where it was like, okay, we'll give you, $1 million, but you have to pay us $3 million back,
Mafioso style. Jesus.
And this is where, Puerto Rico did make some mistakes because their elected representatives, looked at the short term, took these loans, and then their debt was just completely out of control. So the last I checked, they are $123 billion in debt, but at least a third of that is just interest on those loan sharky loans. And so usually when this has happened in the United States, like for instance to Washington, D.C. or Detroit, there have been places where this happened, they can declare bankruptcy. But then this is very strange. In the early 1980s, Strom Thurmond, do you remember him? He was the senator from South Carolina, total racist.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the racist one. Yeah, we remember him.
Yeah. And Strom wasn't he the oldest the oldest man there, like 90, I think he was like 94, 95 and still active.
He was by that point going by his birth name, Skeletor.
Pretty much. Yeah. He was there for fucking ever. We couldn't get rid of this guy. And he single-handedly screwed over Puerto Rico for no reason whatsoever because he attached an amendment to a bill, got it signed into law, that made it so that Puerto Rico was exempt from claiming bankruptcy. And to this day, no one knows why that happened. There was no explanation. There was, he didn't write anything about it. It just ended up in this bill. And it was years later that anyone really even noticed. And so here you are now, Puerto Rico would like to declare bankruptcy and they legally can't.
Wow.
So that brings us to 2016 in Congress. So Congress had to do something about this situation. And so what they did is they passed a bill called PROMESA into law. One of the things that it did is it did allow Puerto Rico to get some kind of bankruptcy protection, but not the whole protection that it used to have. And so I think it was about a week or two ago, Puerto Rico just did declare bankruptcy. But because these laws are untested in the courts and in just reality, we don't really know what this is going to look like. So they're looking at years-long legal battles with these banks that won every penny that they were promised in their loan sharky terms. And then the other thing that this bill did, and this is what I think is truly fucked up, is that they created this fiscal control board, which has been done in other places. It was done in DC and it was done in Detroit, but this is different because Congress picked all of the members, and most of those members, the majority of them, were bankers. And then the Puerto Ricans were not represented on the board. So the governor is allowed in the room, but he doesn't even get a vote. So it's all these outsiders that are coming into Puerto Rico. And then the board gets to make all financial decisions for Puerto Rico. So for a long time, we were pretending that Puerto Rico had some kind of independence. As of last year, our Congress made it so that that's not even being faked anymore. So we have this board that's controlling Puerto Rico as we speak. And the first thing that the board did when it came into existence this year was not negotiate with the banks or make them, lose some of the interest or any of those types of things. They immediately went towards the Puerto Rican people for the money. For example, the Puerto Rican people will be paying higher taxes, including an 11.5% sales tax, which is higher than just about anywhere else in the country. They're going to pay higher fees for their water and electricity. They've slashed government services. The pension payments have been slashed big time. In fact, we don't even know if the pensions are going to be able to be paid out by the end of this year. And they've closed hundreds of schools. And now the next step is the government's being told to sell off its assets, like its electricity grid and its public transportation system. And the banks, so far, they're fine.
Really?
Yeah. And we gave Puerto Rico exactly $0 to help them with the situation, even though they do pay taxes. That's your Congress at work.
Yeah,
horrible.
Because we're taxing these people, we're raising their rates up. Half of them aren't even educated. We just shut down their schools to make sure the rest of them don't become educated. Isn't there like a huge unemployment problem on the island right now too?
Yeah, their unemployment is officially at 11%, but like the rest of the country, as soon as you stop looking for work, you don't count anymore as even like a human. So God only knows what the real unemployment rate is. And I was just there. And one thing that's interesting about Puerto Rico is there's this underground economy. So when you drive around, you'll see people just selling crap on the sides of the roads, but it's a lot of people with a lot of tents and a lot of crap. And so there's also this economy that the situation there for the people living there is actually a little bit better than you'd think because there's so much cash exchanging hands. So it looks like they're unemployed, but they're actually selling rotisserie chickens on the side of the road and providing for themselves. So at the same time, it's a dire situation, but they are figuring it out amongst themselves, at least the people that are still there. They've lost 10% of the population. And here's how it affects the rest of us, especially you guys in Florida, because the Puerto Ricans, they're pretty smart. They know that they're U.S. citizens. They can come to any of the other states and work. And so that's what they're doing. They're leaving. So we're going to pay for them one way or another. But yeah, so far, our Congress is not being very nice to the Puerto Rican people.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, it's horrible.
No, I was going to say, I think most of Puerto Rico lives in Orlando now.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. That's where it happens.
And part of New York too. Isn't there a little Puerto Rico in New York?
Yeah, up in the Bronx, you got a pretty big Puerto Rican and Dominican population. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like I said, their congressman's not allowed to vote. And so what their congressman has been doing is going to people that represent districts in Florida and New York and New Jersey and saying, okay, listen, like, this is why this is your problem. Because if you don't give us our healthcare money on the island, then we're just going to go to the hospitals where you are, and you're never getting reimbursed for that. Because it's not like your tax base.
What's Congress's basis here? Are they just trying to make a congressional island for them to go vacation on when everybody leaves Puerto Rico because they can't live there? I mean, what's the motivation?
That's what Cuba's for.
Are there natural resources that are just abundant there that we're trying to finagle them out of? I don't understand. What's the real motivation behind it for the government?
Well, when we took over Puerto Rico, we turned it into a giant like sugar plantation. And so the first governor of Puerto Rico was only there for a year. He set up the entire government so that when he went back to the States and became the CEO of a sugar company, that he could go back, and with all these people that he had installed, they gave him favorable terms, and then the people's wages were cut to like nothing. And so that's the original motivation for having Puerto Rico. Then it was turned into that corporate tax haven. And the problem now is that we don't really have anything that we want in Puerto Rico. And so Congress has stopped giving a shit. And as I was watching the debate, really all they were trying to do is make the problem go away without spending any U.S. tax dollars to make that problem go away. So the whole PROMESA idea is we're going to have this board. It'll be up to them. And we're going to go do that other stuff. I mean, Congress I don't even think they're following the developments there. They truly don't seem to care.
That's sad. That's sad to hear. I've got a lot of Puerto Rican friends too. That's sad to hear. I didn't know any of that. None. I mean, I knew a little bit about I didn't know the dates when everything happened and become like a colony of ours, but I didn't know the other additional details. That's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just went to Puerto Rico to see for myself what it's like there, and it's lovely people, amazing islands. I walked around feeling so much guilt.
Yeah, no kidding.
Just for not knowing, and that's what I told the people there when I had conversations. I was like, honestly, like, I didn't even think of Puerto Rico ever until I saw this bill roll onto my desk. I never knew that we really had a relationship with them. I mean, the ignorance that we have in our country, I don't really know what we do about that either, because I don't really feel like it's my fault for not knowing what I didn't know. But yeah, there's an awareness problem. For sure.
Spot on.
Well, you helped him out by going and spending money there.
I did, and I'm going to do it again. That place was fun.
You ate that rotisserie chicken that you bought on that black market. I know you did.
Oh, hell yeah, I did. Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I definitely did. And you can drink anywhere you want. So it threw me off because I was there on St. Patrick's Day. I go into this bar, which is across the street from the beach, and I was like, hey, can I have a margarita? And the guy's like, do you want it to go? Yeah. I just looked around and I was like, wait, what do you mean to go? Are we in America? And he's like, not really. So yeah, you can just it's kind of like Vegas in that way. It was really fun. I had such a good time in Puerto Rico. So yeah, I will go back.
Nice. Well, very cool.
Yeah. So that's number 10. Let's go for number 9.
Nueve.
I like the Spanish.
That's all we get. I mean, that's our little interaction with you, really, is when you read your number. Yeah, that's what we get.
So number 9 is not about a current congressman, but if I don't mention this, I feel like I'm not doing my job, which is Anthony Weiner.
Oh, boy.
Oh, the most appropriately named congressman ever.
Isn't that right? Yeah, so 2011, for those of you who have been living under a rock, there was a congressman who was actually one of my favorite congressmen, Anthony Weiner, because he used to yell at people, and he was articulate and he was right. I really like this guy. But he made a big mistake when in 2011, he confused his direct messages on Twitter with his public messages, and he accidentally sent a dick pic to the entire world.
And the dating world has never been the same.
Yes, he was doing it under the nickname Carlos Danger, which is also amazing. And also his reaction to it was great, because he denied that he did it, then he confessed it, then he said, but I'm not resigning, and then he resigned 10 days later. So he was a big old mess. And so yeah, and actually, have you guys seen the documentary Weiner?
No. I didn't even know that existed.
It's so good. So after all this happens to him, he actually allowed a film crew to come with him as he ran for New York's governor.
Why?
So I know, he's so dumb. And it's great because you get to see because the scandal just kept coming back, right? So when he was running for mayor, there were even more allegations that happened. You get to see the look on Huma's face as she finds out. Like, it's so good. It's one of the juiciest documentaries I've ever seen in my life. You have to go and see it. But yeah, so he's married to Huma Abedin, who I just referenced, and that is one of Hillary Clinton's top aides. They've been working together for like 15 years. Huma not only worked for Clinton in the Secretary of State and in her campaign, but also worked for the Clinton Foundation. So she's all up in the Clinton stuff. And so in September of 2016, New York State and the FBI started investigating Anthony Weiner for sexting a 15-year-old. And while they were searching on his laptop, the FBI found emails related to Hillary Clinton. And that was because Anthony Weiner's wife was one of Clinton's aides, and they had been exchanging emails. And so the FBI had to look back into that investigation. And the reason I even put this in here is that this had a major effect on what we're dealing with right now with the Trump administration, at least maybe, because on October 28th of 2016, the FBI, after reopening the case, had to tell Congress that they did so. And so FBI Director James Comey sent a letter to Jason Chaffetz in Congress saying we had to reopen the investigation. And then Chaffetz told the media because he's a Republican. And after that, Hillary blamed that for her loss. Now, I don't think that's why she lost. I don't know anyone in the United States who didn't already know who they were voting for by October 28th. But right now, we are seeing the ramifications of that because Jim Comey was just fired on Tuesday. It was less than a week ago. And so this whole Anthony Weiner thing was this slippery slope that just kept sliding all the way into...
If he just would have kept his dick to himself. See? This is what dick pics do. Dick pics ruin careers.
His dick pic forced us to have Trump in office and not Hillary.
From 2011. That's
right?
How long his penis lasts. Anthony Weiner, the new spokesperson for Viagra and Cialis, ladies and
That's got to
gentlemen.
be the longest penis ever.
He has called several emergency rooms for erections lasting way over 4 hours. This is going on 6 years now. And it's a problem, Anthony. We need you to get this fixed, Tony.
His next documentary is the 7-year dick.
You might be onto something there. You better coin that real quick before it gets taken. No, there was a lot of... So I'm not Democrat or Republican. Myself, I'm independent. I usually in my past have voted majority towards Republican, but not always. There's some, lines that I've sat on. And I'll be 100% honest. Going into this election, for the presidential election, I did not know who I was going to vote for when that came out. I legitimately did not. And I broke it down, put personalities aside because I didn't like either candidate personally. Yeah. I went down their list of platforms, and I literally made a pros and cons list of which one I liked more based on just platforms. And I could not decide. Even with that, and they were almost identical for their platforms. Hillary had something better for NASA and for the federal government for our budget, but didn't have some of the things, whatever. I won't get into that part, but I didn't know. Well, when that came out, I'm the one guy that didn't know. Well, when that came out, and yeah, it was an investigation into him, but it reopened something for her. It was just like, man, really, this is at this stage of the game, this might actually influence what I'm going to vote for. Which person I'm going to cast my vote for. So it didn't necessarily. At the end of the day, I knew I stuck with my guns and picked the platform that best fit my life and my children's life. But it certainly was influenceable at the time. So it was shocking to see come out when it came out. I thought to be honest, it seemed like a scandal. It seemed like when Comey talked about the reopening of the investigation, it was so ironic of timing coming so close to what was going on with the elections. I just for sure thought it was a scandal. I'm like, all right, I'm almost willing to dismiss this because it seems so scandalous.
Because of the timing, yeah. Jim Comey has been one of my favorite people in government for so long. Because do you remember him from the Bush administration?
No.
So this is how I know who he is. So it's like, keep in mind, right now he's being accused of doing something that hurt the Democrats, right?
Right.
Well, the reason he came onto my radar is that when John Ashcroft was the attorney general, he got pancreatitis or something. And so he ended up in the hospital. He was damn near dead. And so Jim Comey became the acting attorney general. Well, during that window of like 3 days, the spying program had to come up for reauthorization. And so Alberto Gonzales and Andy Card, that was Bush's chief of staff, and I don't know what Alberto Gonzales was at the time, but they tried to get Jim Comey to sign this. And he looked at it and goes, oh no, this is illegal. This I will not sign this. And so what they did is they went to the hospital to try to get John Ashcroft to sign it. So Jim Comey calls Ashcroft's wife, says they're coming right now. Keep them out of that room. He gets in his car, rushes to the hospital. They arrive pretty much at the same time. The guys give John Ashcroft the paper. And John Ashcroft, I guess, like sits up and gives this speech and basically says, like, I'm not the acting attorney general. He is, points to Jim Comey. And Jim Comey just basically says, I'm not signing that. Get out of this room. So he's stood up to the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And when I look at the situation that he was put in, I remember him telling Jason Chaffetz, who said, if there's any developments in this email thing, will you notify Congress? And he said yes. So it's like, what was he supposed to do? They did reopen the case. And he put on every agent that he had. It was solved by the end of that weekend, it was a monumental task, how many emails they had to go through. And before the election, they said there's nothing to this. But if I was in Jim Comey's position, I think I would have done the same exact thing, even though the timing was so suspect. That's just when they found that crap on the laptop. So I don't know. I tend to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's never been a party stooge on either side. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah. You should watch. There's a testimony. You can, if you just look up Jim Comey from like, I think it was 2007, you can hear him tell the story of going to the hospital. It's the most riveting 15 minutes of C-SPAN you'll ever see.
That's funny. You use riveting and C-SPAN in the same sentence. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Sometimes it really is, you guys. I swear. This is another reason why I do my podcast. Sometimes this stuff is amazing. You just have to watch for a really long time to find it.
So it's like baseball is what you're saying.
Yes.
Every now and then you get a triple play. But it took you 4 seasons and 3. All right. I like it.
100%. So that was number 9. Now, number 8.
Numero 8.
So number 8 is also another resignation. This one was Aaron Schock. And this is the only one on my list that really doesn't affect us until this day, but it's just a story that's so fun that I had to tell you. So Aaron Schock was a congressman until 2015 when he had to resign after we discovered that he used at least $120,000 of our tax money to decorate his office like a scene out of Downton Abbey.
Ooh, that makes sense.
You know, of all the things that are more boring than C-SPAN,
Downton Abbey.
He made C-SPAN more boring by decorating it like Downton Abbey.
Oh.
All right, well done.
My ex-wife used to love Downton Abbey, and I hated that. Oh man, I'm a sensitive man. Don't get me wrong, and I enjoy good quality productions of shows. Downton Abbey killed me.
Yeah, I've never seen the show, but I know that based on Aaron Schock's office, that I would never want to decorate my home that way. Some of the things that we bought for him include a giant mirror with an eagle on top.
Of course.
A huge crystal chandelier.
Mm-hmm.
A table propped up by 2 eagles.
Yes.
Ooh, that's fancy.
A bust of Abraham Lincoln, which was huge, by the way. It was like life size.
Oddly enough, the bust of Abraham Lincoln, direct from the actual set of Downton Abbey. Abraham Lincoln is huge in England.
And then my favorite one, he had a massive arrangement of pheasant feathers.
Stop. Pheasant feathers? Man, those are some expensive pheasant feathers.
That was a typo. It's actually peasant feathers. What they did, they robbed homeless people of their pillows and just dumped all the feathers out. But pheasant made it look pretty for the bill.
Yeah, if you guys want to see this ridiculousness, just Google Aaron Schock's office and you'll see it's bright red. You can't miss it.
And wait, where was he elected from? Who did he represent?
I want to say he was Illinois.
Okay, that makes sense. That explains the Lincoln bust.
For the Renaissance period, maybe like a Georgia, that would have been more fitting. Good old Southern belle.
Trust me, no one from the South has a bust of Abraham Lincoln in their office.
Nope.
That's true.
All right, so how are we feeling about number 7?
Good.
So number 7 is also a fun little scandal. This actually happened to a then governor, which was Governor Mark Sanford. He went missing.
So this was a congressman,
Mark Sanford of South Carolina. He was a congressman for a few years, then he left Congress, became the governor, and in 2009, he straight up disappeared for 6 days. Just gone. And he didn't tell anyone, not his staff, not his family. No one knew where he was. And the reason this affects us as taxpayers is that no one in his state knew what the hell to do. Do they have a governor? Do they not? Like, there are certain lines of succession that need to be activated if your governor is sick or dead or missing. And so they lit for 6 days. It was this question, like, is Mark Sanford still the governor? Is he not? So he finally shows up again. When he got back, he lied to us. He said he was hiking on the Appalachian Trail when actually he was in Argentina banging a Argentinian television journalist.
Oh, that's not good.
Wow.
Well, actually, Argentinian TV journalists are pretty good.
Yeah, well, it's good. It's good from one perspective, but that's not good.
It's South Carolina. No one misses it. I went to school there for a little bit. Yeah, no one lost.
Yeah, so and yeah, especially not Mark Sanford, because he didn't resign from his office, and the reason this is affecting us now is that he got reelected to Congress. So he won a special election in 2013, and he's been reelected every 2 years ever since. And what's interesting about this dude, and why I wanted to put this in the list, is he's a Republican in the House of Representatives, and he recently told NPR that he's been a dead man walking. He knows what that feels like, and he's recovered. And so he really has no fear anymore. He doesn't fear the voters because it doesn't seem like he can do anything wrong. And he's one of the few members of Congress on the Republican side who's not afraid of pissing off Trump. So when I kind of want to know, like, take the temperature of the people that are not just blindly following the party, he's an interesting one to watch. And so I just kind of wanted to put that out there. But yeah, he
I can see that.
Literally ditched his constituents for a week, and they still elected him to Congress.
Well, that's because no one pays attention to who they're voting for in Congress. Everyone thinks the president's going to change the world when Congress holds the keys. And two, especially in South Carolina, half of them can't read the fucking ballot. All right. So yeah,
we got listeners in South Carolina. What are you doing, man?
Yeah, half of them can't find this because they can't type the name of the podcast into the search bar.
That's a good
So,
point.
no, I went to school in South Carolina for like 2 years. I went to high school there, and I remember getting. So, okay, way off the side. Okay, so I went as a sophomore in high school. I moved from Miami, Florida to Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, one of the more affluent areas of South Carolina.
Sure,
and I've learned no one in South Carolina knows what the word affluent means. So in Miami, I was a pretty decent student, took all honors classes, no problems. Moved to South Carolina, sat down with the counselor. We were going over my schedule, and they said, listen, it's South Carolina. Listen, we don't really think that you're really cut out for the honors English program here. And I looked at them and I said, well, why? Well, we're just not sure that the English taught at Miami is exactly on par with the English taught here in the great state of South Carolina. And I looked at him and I was like, I spoke like this in 10th grade. I said, did you have a problem understanding my English?
It's that last name. It's that Alvarez
It's
name.
Alvarez. No, that's what it is. But they didn't realize that my mom's last name was Howell. So that got real fun and real ugly. And then they finally give me the class. I go in, they're reading out of the book, they're reading The Great Gatsby, which I read like 4 years ago for a summer reading project. And I'm like, okay, you're reading this out of a textbook. Great. And they're reading out loud, which doesn't bode well ever. And the reason they're reading out loud, because half the kids in that class, who are American, mind you, can't fucking read. But they gave me crap because I have a Z in my last name. And I tan just a little more than anyone else in the summer. And they gave me grief for it because, there's no way you speak English. I'm like, this fucker doesn't read, dude.
Racism is fun. I'm just saying.
I loved it.
Good gracious.
The South. I'm sorry. That's horrible. On behalf of all white people, I apologize.
Oh no, you're fine. My mom's from Georgia, so I feel the guilt and the rage all at the same time. Like it's kind of a weird juxtaposition.
Jen, we didn't ask you where you from, by the way, or where you Skyping in from, by the way, right now, because we still see the sun there. And out here in Florida, it's set for the most part.
Yeah, I'm in Walnut Creek, California, which is just outside of the most expensive place in the universe, San Francisco.
Nice.
Fantastic.
That's our biggest market, by the way. The San Francisco, San Jose, and Oakland market, I think, is one market together. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's our biggest market. Next to Orlando. Orlando's the big. That's because we're here, but that's our next biggest market is that market out there. So hey,
I mean that makes sense just because those are 3 pretty major cities that we all for some reason count as one,
even though they're not.
I don't know how Libsyn does their market demographics because that's they group them together though.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, this is one of my biggest markets too, but it's not surprising because I live here.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so let's do number 6.
Six.
So number 6 is something, it's not like a one-time occurrence. This is every single time I've seen the government be funded. So this is just a general trend, which is that the government in the 5 years that I've been doing my podcast has never been funded properly, not once. So
the way that it's supposed to work is that we have
12 different segments of government. And so the House is supposed to start the negotiations. They're supposed to craft a bill. It goes over to the Senate. If there's changes, the House and the Senate come together and they give their combined bill to the president who signs it into law. This is supposed to happen 12 times by September 30th. It's their basic fucking job. And they've never done it. So like this year, we had 1 out of the 12 get done on time. The last 11 were just signed into law on Cinco de Mayo. Mind you, that is 7.5 months into the fiscal year. So the fiscal year is over on September 30th. We just got 2017 funded. And this is how I've seen it happen over and over again. And what's terrible about this is that the bills that we end up getting tend to be thousands of pages long, like literally 2,000 pages I've had to read before. And these are never available for more than 3 days. So they throw these out there. And the effect of this is that things can get attached and brought into law that shouldn't be because they use these giant bills as a vehicle. And I know we're supposed to take a break here, but it's actually directly related to number 5.
Let's throw it off kilter.
That's your twist.
Let's throw it off kilter. We can tie them together.
Off your numbers.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's your show. You do what you want.
Wait, hold on. We're doing number 5 now?
So yeah, number 6, this happens all the time, which my example is one of the things, I call it dingleberries when this happens, because it's like, here's your giant bill, and then you have this shit attached to it and just like rides in the law. So one of the dingleberries was an international treaty. So in 2012, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton negotiated and signed a treaty with Mexico to allow deep water drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, even deeper than where the Deepwater Horizon was. So you probably remember this bill. It happened in 2010. We had a gusher coming out of the bottom of the ocean for, I think, 2.5 months. And 2 years later, Hillary's out there negotiating this thing with Mexico where the Deepwater Horizon was 5,000 feet. Now, because of this treaty, they can drill over 11,000 feet into the Gulf of Mexico. So talk about not learning your lessons.
Yeah, no kidding.
So she negotiates this treaty. But the thing about treaties is they have to be passed by the Senate. And so instead of doing this separately, because it's a big decision, they dingleberried it into law on the 2014 budget. And no one even knows that this happened. So instead of after that spill having a national conversation about whether or not we should do this, no one even knows that that treaty was signed into law.
Good gracious.
Including some of the senators.
I don't mean to be rude, but I am totally writing that down. They dingleberried it in. I feel like I'm going to use that in my everyday life at least once a day. Hey, what happened? Nah, dude, they got dingleberried in. I don't know what to do.
I was living in Tampa at the time. Actually, a little bit after that happened in 2012. I was living in Tampa. I worked at United States Central Command out there. And yeah, all the markets over there, the on that coast. Granted, Tampa didn't take the hit like Louisiana did, but they still took an effect, and those communities were hurt for a long time from that spill. That was a horrific spill, and it's obviously we didn't learn our lesson though.
No, and the Gulf hasn't recovered. It really hasn't. And there's people like me, like I still will check my shrimp. If it comes from the Gulf, I'm not eating it. Just because I'm crazy. And so I read EPA reports and I know that they're still finding things in the fish, and I'm just, all that dispersant that they put in, it sunk the oil to the bottom. It wasn't like they cleaned it up. They just sunk it. And that's where a lot of the animals, the eggs are laid. And so these are repercussions we're going to deal with for a really long time.
And
but the news said it's okay.
Yeah, right?
Glad I don't eat seafood.
Yeah.
You're missing out.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you. You're missing out.
Not if it's from the Gulf.
You don't know. You've never had salmon until you've had it coated in petroleum.
It's nice and shimmery.
Yeah.
I do like sparkles.
Nothing brings out the taste of a clam like 100% pure crude. Like that's all you need.
Crude clams.
That actually sounds like a great menu
brown,
item.
Orange color looks like gravy. You won't even know the difference.
Black Pearl Market is booming right now.
So that was number 5, that tie-in together right there?
Yes, that was the dingleberry that I wanted to.
There's so many of them, but that's just my favorite one because it was an international treaty. Like,
she dingleberried number 5 in there. I like that. Yeah, see, I'm already using it. I got this.
Well, very cool. All right, so Jen Briney with Congressional Dish. That was an awesome 10 through 5 instead of 10 through 6. I like it. You're changing shit up around here. This is how you're doing it. I like it. All right, so
rule breaker.
rebel you. All right, so we're gonna take a break in studio, and then we will be back in just a few minutes. When we come back, can you give us a recap of 10 through 5, and then take your top 4, do what you want to. All right, cool deal. We're gonna take a break in studio, and we will be right back.
Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world in 7 seas.
Hey, Tach, you ever have that conversation with your girl about where to eat dinner and it always turns into that back and forth? I don't know, you pick.
Yeah, every once in a while, yeah.
Yeah, well, I've got an answer for you next time that comes up.
Oh, yeah? Where at?
The Salty Fox in Melbourne off of Oak Alley Boulevard.
Oh, nice. You know, I've actually been there, and the food was pretty awesome.
Hell yeah, it was. They offer a great selection of paninis, shareable appetizers, soups and salads, and one of the best desserts I've ever had, the Funky Monkey.
Oh, yeah, my favorite was the vintage options. They got this meal called ramen noodle on crack. You just got to try it out.
Done. That's definitely what I'm getting next time.
Put the fun between your legs at the Salty Fox every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. with the Oak Alley Arts District Bike Crawl.
It's a 4-mile bicycle ride down Pineapple Avenue with stops for food and beer all along the route. Be sure to visit the Salty Fox every Sunday for brunch from 11 to 4.
Hey, isn't that the $10 bottomless mimosas brunch?
Sure is. Enjoy your brunch while the Salty Fox's DJ spins throwbacks and top 40 hits.
Salty Fox is located in the downtown Oak Alley Art District on Oak Alley Boulevard.
Check them out on Facebook at facebook.com/saltyfoxmelbourne or online at thesaltyfox.net.
Hey listeners, be sure to mention you heard about the Salty Fox on our show and you'll get 10% off your meals.
You're in the mix with DJ Gillugo.
Hey, it's Adam. If you enjoy the hosts or the content of The Twisted 10, be sure to check out our other show. It's called Living Podcariously. While The Twisted 10 may get crass and explicit occasionally, it holds no water to Living Podcariously. We do get a little bit more rough and raw on that show. We have a lot of fun producing it and have had some awesome guests. And as always, thanks for listening.
Okay, we have 45 seconds before the anesthesia wears off, so we have to make this quick.
That's not very good anesthesia.
Focus, now. Remember why we're here.
Honestly, no. Sandwiches?
Soon. Look, we're here to tell the Twisted 10 listeners about our show, the Conversation Hats Podcast, in which a hat tells us to talk about geek culture, the arts and the abstract, features guests from the creative industries along with original sketches and music.
Oh yeah. I guess we'd mentioned that the Conversation Hat is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and on StabbedPanda.com, right?
I really wish we'd scripted this before breaking in.
Liam, they're starting to wake up.
Oh, darn, there's no time. Come on, through the window.
We forgot the sandwiches.
Village Idiot Pub. You locals know about it? You guys from out of town have to check them out.
Village Idiot Pub is now a proud sponsor with Living Podcariously and the Twisted 10 podcasts.
It's more than just about commercials, though. The cast here will be taking our show on the road to Village Idiot to record some episodes as well as hold events. They have over 30 beers on tap, including ciders and Hefeweizen, my favorite, as well as hundreds of bottle choices.
Adam, you forgot my favorite, all the delicious wine. So get your friends together and enjoy the board games, puzzles, and the giant Jenga.
Let the owner, Jason, as well as the rest of the staff there, take excellent care of your beer drinking needs.
Mention either one of our shows to the staff and get 10% off your tab.
Tuesday is open mic, Wednesday is trivia, Thursday is karaoke, Friday and Saturday night are live music.
Visit them at 4 Harrison Street, Suite 103, Cocoa, Florida, or Village Idiot Pub on Facebook. And don't forget, they are a dog-friendly location, so bring your friends, family, and fur babies.
All right, welcome back to the Twisted 10. Again, we are honored to have Jen Briney with Congressional Dish doing this week's Twisted 10 list. And she went off rails on this. She went 10 through 5, not 10 through 6. Breaking the rules.
What a twist.
Owning the show.
Her own conspiracy.
Just establishing dominance right off the bat.
That's right. Jen, if you don't mind, could you run through your 10 through 5, just like the titles of each one of those to remind our listeners of what your past ones were?
Sure. So number 10 of the top 10 congressional scandals that are affecting us now was the Puerto Rico Fiscal Control Board. Number 9 was Anthony Weiner's laptop and dick pics. Number 8 was Aaron Schock's Downton Abbey office, which we paid for. Number 7 was Mark Sanford, missing on the Appalachian Trail, but not really because he was banging an Argentinian. And number 6 was the fact that government funding is never done properly. And number 5 was the fact that when it's not done properly, we get dingleberries, like the treaty with the Gulf of Mexico, which allows drilling in the Gulf even deeper than where the Deepwater Horizon spill was.
That's amazing. Now, are these in any hierarchical order, or are they kind of random? Do they get better as we get to number 1? Because they're good anyway, but...
Better as in you're going to feel better about your country, or better as in juicier?
More scandalous.
Yeah, the top 4 are more like serious, problematic.
I just love that so far I've realized that I live in a country where you can legitimately look at someone and say, how is Anthony Weiner's dick affecting you today?
And I'm proud to be an American.
And you salute a flag, you drape one over you.
Oh. Yeah. And then you look at Twitter like I just did and go, oh, well, our president just gave classified information to the Russians, so there's that. Thanks, Wiener.
Reagan. Wait, who was Nixon rolling in his grave? All the dead presidents are like, we can't give it to the Russians. We can't give it to the Russians. He's giving it all to the Russians.
Yeah. And Trump's like, give me vodka. I'll give you whatever you want. Although I don't think he drinks, which might be part of the problem.
There's no way that man doesn't drink.
He doesn't drink, and he doesn't have a dog. I can't trust a president that doesn't have a presidential dog in the White House. I'm just saying.
Yeah, even the Clintons had socks.
Wasn't socks a cat?
There should be a pet.
Yeah, there needs to be a
creature. They need a creature.
Yes.
I just don't understand how they expected this guy to keep his mouth shut around Russia when they gave him, two out of his 3 wives?
I've lost track.
Yeah.
This may be the last episode of the Twisted 10 because Trump's going to put the hammer down on us and shut this show down.
He's probably going to get a moat and get a pet shark.
Bring it on, fat man.
He'll never know he said these things. We're not on Fox News.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or Breitbart.
Not yet.
All right. So you're at number 4, right?
Yes. Number 4.
Cuatro.
Number 4.
So number 4 is another one of these things that just doesn't happen. And this is war declarations, which is supposed to be handled by Congress, but hasn't been handled by Congress since World War II.
I heard you say this in your last episode of North Korea, and I was amazed at that. I could not believe that.
Congress has not declared war since World War II. So there's a couple, obviously we've been in a lot of wars since then, but we don't call them wars. We call them other things. We call them conflicts.
Operations.
Military actions.
Operations. In the funding, you see overseas contingencies operations. It's the OCO account. It's now up to like $100 billion, and it's for the wars that we're not officially in, but are totally fucking in. So, so that's how we do it now. And the way that it's actually done, right after World War II, we joined the United Nations, and the law that put us into the United Nations basically says as if the United Nations decides to do something, then we will do it with them. And so we've done this for war. So like in the Korea episode that I talked about, that's how we ended up in the Korea War, because the United Nations said that we should support South Korea. And so we took that as we should go into South Korea and use our military to bomb the hell out of North Korea, and called it legal. We did the same thing. The Clinton administration did it with Haiti and Bosnia. Daddy Bush did it with Iraq the first time, and it was all because of the UN law. And then since 9/11, we've been using this authorization for the use of military force, which is very short. It's only one paragraph, and it basically says that we can go after anyone that was involved with 9/11. And that has been twisted so many ways that it's been used to justify our war in Afghanistan, which is now 16 years old. Our regime change war in Libya. It's the reason that we're bombing Syria right now, Somalia, Yemen, Pakistan. It's been used to bomb so many places. And Congress doing nothing. So
That's number 4.
Except showing dick pics. Just saying.
yeah, but you get kicked out for that. We'll fire you for the dick pic, but we won't fire you for the illegal wars. Like,
Yep.
So yeah, that was number 4. It's all happy news with me, isn't it? So who's ready for number 3? You guys want to kill yourself yet?
3?
Number 3?
Numero tres.
No, it's entertaining as hell. It really is. You had a really good twist. Again, not kissing your ass, but you had a really good twist on bringing boring politics with a really, really good comedic spin and a personality attached to it. So it's entertaining. So I encourage our listeners to go check that show out. You got to let us know if your numbers move too from our listeners. I would love to hear you got an extra little bump from our guys.
I think I'm just like a sick person because I really enjoy natural disasters. Like my favorite movie of all time is 2012 because it's 2 hours of just watching the world burn.
Love it.
That's the only movie that any Cusack's ever been enjoyed in.
Yeah, I love everything about it. And I've always said that I'm Woody Harrelson in that movie because I'm not going to like try and survive. Like I'm going to be on the top of the hill watching it and cheering it on, you know? So I feel like that's what I'm doing right now because I'm watching these disasters, but I find it funny. And I don't know why it's not funny, but I laugh at all of it.
San Andreas was pretty good. But I'll tell you,
that one too.
The best disaster movie, like the end of the world movie, was in the movie Knowing with Nicolas Cage. It was a boring movie for the most part up until the end. And the end, or was it Numbers? Numbers or no? It was
Numbers
Knowing.
was a TV show.
It was Knowing.
Knowing is the Nicolas Cage abomination that was filmed and aired, and I don't know how Nicolas Cage didn't even like that movie.
The last like 15 minutes of that movie are phenomenal as far as natural, or as far as like the world ending apocalyptic style kind of stuff. It's cool.
My favorite natural disaster movie is still Wizard of Oz. It's a twister. It's a twister. It starts off with a twister.
The Twister, yes, that is a good Twister, and the movie Twister is great too.
Yes,
Bill Paxton, poor guy, man. That was a loss to Hollywood. I'm just saying.
Did you see what the storm chasers did after he died? It was so cool.
No.
They drove into like the center of the country and they spelled out BP on their GPS with their cars.
yes, I did see that.
cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Cute.
That is cool.
Yeah.
He made storm chasing cool, and now you can't drive through Oklahoma in May.
Andrea is from Oklahoma,
Yep.
actually. Our female co-host
Born
is from.
and bred in Chickasha, Oklahoma.
Yep.
Is what I said true? I've heard that like there's so many storm chasers in Oklahoma, it's actually driving business there.
I haven't lived there. I moved here in 2000, so I just grew up there. So probably that changed after that. But yeah, that would make sense for May because that's the worst. I was there in 99 for the May 3rd ones. That was a lot of interesting stuff. We were outside. We could see it just like coming at us. We're like, we're going to die. But I lived in Chickasha, which they say has an Indian blessing around it. So a tornado has never touched in the city limits.
Wow.
So I think what it technically is it's in just a tiny slight valley. So the tornadoes kind of go around the border of it. But who knows? It could be the old Indian blessing.
That's cool. Whatever works for you. Although I gotta say, the idea of getting hit by a tornado is like my dream.
Oh my God, it was so fun sitting out there watching this like 5-mile length tornado that's like just less than 10 miles away.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I would move back there tomorrow if I were you.
I get hurricanes here.
Yeah, see, that's one of the things I hate about California. We get nothing. We get earthquakes, but those aren't as fun.
What do you mean? You get the ground moves. If I know nothing on this planet is that you should trust the ground to be firm, and when you can't trust the ground, what can you trust?
Yeah, and it's like we have nothing but boredom, and then the earthquake happens, but because you don't see it coming, like it's truly terrifying. The little ones are great. Between like 3 and 5 on the Richter scale, like I'm fine. But once you get over that and like things fall down, then it's less chill. But I like storm watches and hurricane watches. I love that stuff and thunderstorms. And here, it's just sunny. 75 and perfect every day. I'm so over it.
Stupid good weather.
Said almost no one ever. Just say it.
I know, right? So this is why I can watch Congress and laugh about it, because I'm a freak.
Because you're not watching the Weather Channel. That's why, like, I don't have to. Whoops, CNBC it is. All right, let's go.
Oh, you're going on vacation to Florida? Why? Oh, it's hurricane season.
I literally did that. I went in August and I was hoping for a hurricane.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a big listener event coming up July 7th. I'm not going to shamelessly plug it, but I'm going to use this as an analogy.
Shameless plug.
As a little shameless plug. I'm worried about July 7th. I'm like, damn, that's a month into hurricane season down here. God, I hope our event goes well and there's no hurricane that scares everybody away.
Well, don't say it out loud now.
Yeah,
we
you're
just
right.
jinxed it.
It's okay. I put an Indian blessing on it. We're okay.
Or you could just turn it into a hurricane party, bring in cots and lots of beer.
Then we
That's a
just
good
all
point.
stay at the Idiot,
Yeah,
and then we really get to know our listeners.
Our
Hunker down.
sponsor down here is called the Village Idiot Pub. So whenever you hear the idiot referred to from us, that's what that's for.
Okay. I thought it was your fourth co-host.
The idiot.
poor Tach.
Oh, poor Tach.
Sorry, Tach.
Poor
This was a
Tach.
joke. I don't know. All right. So should we get back to this list?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, yeah, we went off on a tangent. I thought this was podcarously for a little bit.
We tangent crazy.
Sorry, I'm bad at that too. Lately, I just want to talk about anything other than Congress, so that's why I'm doing that. But,
You should guest on our other show sometime as well, if you're interested. It's just as big as this one, but
yeah, anytime. Yeah, you guys are so much fun. I could talk to you all day.
that's about sex and
At this
relationships.
rate, I'm going
and-
to.
I can just cut this out and put it on that show. It'll probably fit just fine.
So number 3 is the protection of 501c4s. Now, this all has to do with the IRS scandal. Do you guys remember this from a couple of years back?
Refresh us.
Yeah, refresh especially our listeners.
You probably just heard the word IRS scandal because that was really the base of it. They just kept repeating it, so we would think that the IRS was bad. But what it was all about was protecting secret campaign contributions, and here's how. So the IRS was investigating groups that were claiming tax-exempt status. And these were political groups. But the thing is that political groups are already tax-exempt. So it had nothing to do with taxes. What was happening is that political groups were signing up as social welfare groups in order to hide their donors because social welfare organizations don't have to tell you where they get their money from. And so what you were finding were groups like Karl Rove's Super PAC, Crossroads GPS. It wanted to be a social welfare organization, and people at the IRS went, no, you're Karl Rove, and this is clearly a political organization, and you should be disclosing your donors. And so they were doing their jobs. And so the conservatives, the people on Breitbart and Fox, they turned this into a whole big scandal, basically to intimidate the IRS into shutting down this investigation. And this is still going on. They're still trying to impeach the IRS commissioner, John Koskinen, and he's done nothing wrong. He wasn't even there when all of this was happening. And so they made a whole bunch of enemies of the people in the IRS. And what the result of that has been is now the IRS is just giving all of these political organizations their social welfare status. So Karl Rove's Super PAC is now a social welfare organization, along with Barack Obama's Priorities USA Action. That one is a social welfare organization. There's one that was supporting Hillary. It's called Next Gen Climate Action. This one is pretty much funded by one dude, and that's a social welfare organization. And then Politico reported in January that the Trump people are creating a social welfare organization for Trump in 2020. So they're already starting to get the dark money going for his next election, assuming he survives this first term.
We had a mutual friend that said that he predicts that Trump is going to have some kind of illness, that's like a self-induced illness, that he's going to resign early. And I got into quite a debate back and forth about, I don't think his ego would let him do that. I think hearing about the dark money coming in for him for the next campaign is interesting timing. I think that's pretty spot on.
Well, and what happens is just like with Barack Obama's Priorities USA, that was a super PAC for him that just turned into a Hillary super PAC. So it's if they'll raise the money for Trump, but then just give it to whoever the next Republican is. So that's how this stuff works. And you don't know where the donations are coming from. And that's the entire point. And so by creating this fake scandal, they've now made it to the point that this dark money, there is no one that's afraid of using this mechanism anymore. They were a couple of years ago, and now it's open season. So if you guys want to hide some of your donors for your podcast, make it a social welfare organization. It'll get approved.
Nice.
So yeah, that's number 3, and that's ongoing. This has not stopped. So.
Fantastic.
Yay! Don't you love Congress? How about number 2? Number 2. Okay, so number 2 is something called fast track. And so this has to do with international treaties. Now, when we do trade agreements with other countries, we call them agreements, but they're really treaties because these trade agreements have so much more to do with international law than just trade. So, for instance, there's something called the Investor State Dispute Settlement System, where corporations can go to this international court and sue governments for regulations that affect their profit margins. So, we have this global system that's being created through trade agreements, and it's a big, big deal when this happens because these trade agreements, they trump our domestic laws, which... Now that just came out of my mouth, no pun intended, although it totally fucking works here. Because here's what happened. So Barack Obama was the president last year. And so the Democrats and the Republicans, they were working out the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was one of these international treaties. And they trust Obama. So they did this thing called fast track. And what it does is it changes the way that treaties can become law by making it easier. So a way a treaty is supposed to become law is it's supposed to be passed through the Senate with 2/3 majority. It's supposed to be hard. And what fast track does is it makes it so that it will become U.S. law if it passes the Senate with a 50% majority rules vote. And right now the Republicans have it. And the real scandal here with this last fast track, which was approved, is they approved it until 2021. So the last Congress had no idea who the next president was going to be. And they not only gave that person fast track, that person who is now Donald Trump, fast track the entire time. And then 6 months into the administration after that, too, which is just reckless. It's like if you trust Barack Obama, like, OK, give it to him, but make it expire in January. But no, we have this until 2021. So when Donald Trump says, I want to renegotiate NAFTA and all these crazy things, you're like, he can't do that. He kind of can, especially if the Republicans go along with him because they've switched it to where the Democrats have no role in it anymore.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so that will affect us for the next 4 years.
You did a really good summary of that and I hate plugging your last show over and over and over, but you did a really good summary on the last show about how these trade negotiations and these trade deals are really basically writing the laws that the world. What did you cite in your last show? Something about world
order. They
world
keep
order.
saying
Yes. Yeah, over and over,
Yeah.
these trade deals.
I hate that term because it sounds so Alex Jones.
Yep.
But John McCain keeps saying it, and Jack Reed keeps saying it. It's like when you hear it in Congress, it's like, it's not conspiracy theory when it's coming from John McCain. So,
Yep.
but yeah, that's the big game. That's what I've kind of learned here. Because I've been reading the books that like the people in the military are reading to kind of see like what they're trying to do. And after World War II, we set up this economic order where America is running the show. And anyone that doesn't want to participate in our economic order, we go to war with them, or we try to in some other way change their behavior. A lot of times it's bribery, and if that doesn't work, then we just go and take them over. So my episode on Libya explains that really well, because that's exactly what happened in Libya. But yeah, it's really this battle between these economic orders, and when you look at like Russia and China as enemy, it's economic because they don't want to go along with us making all the rules. And then if you look at the rules that we're making, they're not even fair to you and I, like U.S. taxpayers. We have no role in this new system, and it's really designed on behalf of multinational corporations, at least from what I've seen with the World Trade Organization and the TPP. Those are the only two I've really studied. But yeah, that's the big game. That's what they're trying to do. And fast track is a big part of it. And this is a bipartisan thing. That's why when people only vote one party or the other, they're kind of missing the big picture because both parties are doing it. Barack Obama did the TPP, and it was, Clinton signed in NAFTA, but the Korea trade agreement and Colombia, that was done by Bush. And so this is something that these two parties, there's things they disagree on, but the things they agree on are the big picture things like the economic system and matters of war. So, all right. So that brings me to number one. This one is my
Number one.
Yes. So this one has to do with something called the Stock Act. Have you guys ever heard of this before?
No.
No.
Okay, so STOCK stands for Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act. And so this all started in 2011 when there was a 60 Minutes episode that showed how the leaders of both parties were using the knowledge that they get from, lobbyists or anyone else that visits them to trade on the stock market and make a lot of money. And you see it all the time that people get elected to Congress. The minimum wage in Congress is $174,000 a year. But how do you go into that as a normal person and come out like a millionaire, like with tens of millions of dollars? And this is how it's done. So they're trading on their insider knowledge. So America saw that 60 Minutes thing and said, okay, this is not good. And a year later, they signed the Stock Act. Now, the Stock Act made insider trading by members of Congress illegal, just expressly illegal, although there were so many loopholes that no one's ever been prosecuted. And then the members are also required to report their trades within 30 days. Now, when that was signed into law, the thing that had the most teeth is that when the members were telling us what their trades were, all of those trades were supposed to be listed on a publicly searchable website, and this was supposed to apply to their staffs. So where you watch all the West Wing, it's not just Bartlett you have to care about. It's Leo McGarry. You know, he's pretty powerful too. You don't want him trading on his insider knowledge either.
Matter of fact, there was an episode of The West Wing that focused primarily exactly on this. Toby, he apparently traded stock, and Toby had a friend who gave a speech in front of Congress. I mean, he had no idea what it was. He didn't understand it, but he was under a microscope because his friend gave a speech to Congress. That stock skyrocketed, and Toby had just happened to buy that stock a week prior. Exactly. So yes, see, this is where West Wing did prepare me for this.
There you go. Yeah, it's exactly like that. So you want the staffs to report their trades, and you want it to be on the internet so that annoying people like me can make those connections and tell you what's going on. Well, exactly a year later, so this is signed in April of 2012. In April of 2013, and mind you, when it was signed in 2012, there were cameras and signing statements. It was all over the news, and they're patting each other on the backs, and it was, you know.
Because it was sexy for 20 minutes.
Yeah, and they were like, look at what we're doing. We're policing ourselves. And so they're all proud of themselves then. Exactly a year later, about 5 days before they were having to actually turn in this information, it started in the Senate on a Thursday afternoon. A guy named Chris Coons, who's still in there, got up, and in the middle of the day, while no one was there, he tried to pass something that basically guts the Stock Act. So what this gutting did is it took away that website. So we were supposed to be able to search it, and then it made the website disappear, and also made it so the staffs didn't have to report their stuff. So Chris Coons goes to an empty Senate and passes it by unanimous consent of an empty room, and it flies to the Senate. So next it goes to the House.
And I'm sure that no one knew that was happening, by the way.
I went back to look at the footage. It happened like in the middle. There was no one there. So like when there's no one there, they play the classical music on C-SPAN 2 for like hours and hours and hours. And it was like that for like 2 hours. Chris Coons comes back for like 5 minutes, and then there's no one there for like 2 more. So it's just like, it was in the middle of the day, dropped in. I'm sure almost no one noticed. So yeah, that's exactly how it happened. Then the next day in the House on Fridays is a very predictable pattern. They do their votes, and then the leaders of the two parties have like some partisan battle. And then it's goofball hour, which is where Louis Gohmert gets up there and just says whatever he wants. And it was in that last part where everyone with a brain knows that you no longer have to pay attention. That's when Eric Cantor, the leader of the Republicans, he got up, and again, they passed it through an empty room. So that happened. It was Thursday and Friday, and the Thursday guy was Democrat, Friday was a Republican, and then the following Monday, the day that all the reports were supposed to be submitted, Barack Obama signed it into law. So it was a bipartisan scandal. They gutted the Stock Act with nobody knowing. And what was crazy is that even if the news was going to cover this, the day that it was signed into law was the Boston Marathon bombing, and so no one discussed this. No one even knew.
Look at the left hand.
Mm-hmm. Hang on, there's a conspiracy there somewhere, I'm sure, too.
I am not saying that.
Wag that dog. Wag the dog. I'm just saying. You know what, though? If there was a website where I could go and look at all of my congressmen or senators on the stocks that they're purchasing, you know, that seems like a pretty good business model for me to try to follow. I'm just saying that would be a good way for me to piggyback onto somebody else's insider knowledge without being able to prove that I know inside knowledge. So, I make it
except that you just said it on a podcast.
Yeah.
My name is Tach. I'm just kidding.
And I think that's a really good point, though, because there's a lot of different ways the public could use that, you know, because if the public was looking at that information, they could use it to bet on those stocks or against them. I mean, there's a lot of different ways it could be used, and it makes it less insider knowledge if it is put out there in that way. And what we're finding is because the Stock Act, like I said, it had a ton of loopholes. There was a Politico article yesterday that confirmed that 28 House members, these are current people, 28 House members and 6 senators each traded more than 100 stocks in the last 2 years. So they're trading all the time, and some of them are just really blatant. So I did an episode on, it was called The Price of Healthcare. It was a pun on his name because our new Health and Human Services Secretary is Tom Price, who was a congressman. And one of the biggest problems with him is that he was investing in a company called Innate Immunotherapeutics while creating a bill that would directly give that company more business. And he was still confirmed. We also found out that Sheldon Whitehouse, who was actually one of the people going after Tom Price the hardest in that hearing, but Sheldon Whitehouse was trading pharmaceutical stocks while writing the 21st Century's Cures Act, which was a big gift to the pharmaceutical industry. And then there's also Bob Corker of Tennessee. Here's another example. He bought shares of an energy company that wanted to export oil while at the same time writing a bill to end the oil export ban. So it's like you can see direct connections between the companies these guys are betting on and the legislation that they're writing. And all of this is being hidden from most of us because there is no website where we can find this out. We have to wait for the Politico article.
That really goes back into the power corrupts absolutely type of statement. That's just, you may have a good, head on your shoulders when you go into those offices, but something contagious gets a hold of those guys and gals that are in those seats, and it just turns them. Not all of them, but it just seems to discredit the majority when the majority are really that scandalous. That's sad to see happen.
What it seems to happen is that people get there and then they're told this is how it's done and this is how it's always going to be. And they believe it. And I think at some point we need to understand and elect people on the basis that bribery is bad and make it illegal again. Because right now, all of us are like, even if you're collecting small donations, you're still collecting money from people, and people don't give you money for no reason. Like people give me money because they want my podcast. And so there's no one that's giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to a politician and just being like, nope, just a gift. It's just not how it works. And that's why bribery used to be illegal. And it's really like, I can get mad at the congressman for this behavior, but it's really our fault because this stuff is public knowledge. I'm not in Washington, D.C. I don't know anyone in Congress. I'm finding this information out. Yet we still are electing these people over and over again, no matter what they do. Remember Mark Sanford? He said, there's nothing I can do. I've already disappeared for 6 days and was banging this lady and no one seems to care.
Because he wasn't the president. That no one knows who they're voting for Congress. No one cares who their congressman is. No one cares who their senators are. The president's going to fix everything.
Yeah, but I think that's changing now with this particular president. Because I did see a big panic where people were like, oh my God, what can we do? And it's like, okay, 2018 midterm election. It's the first time in my lifetime that people are looking to a midterm and their congressman to save something. So I'm really curious what's going to happen. I hope we don't have a outrage fatigue because I can already feel it happening to myself where I just want to turn it off. But I'm really hopeful that 2018, that message will switch. I'm hoping more people will realize that the power's in Congress and not the presidency because that's the only way we're going to get rid of Trump.
I feel it has all to do with who they select to be that opponent. In this situation, if they would have picked anybody else, in my opinion, to fit that Democratic spot other than Hillary Clinton, who already gave the U.S. such a bad taste.
Bernie Sanders.
Anyone. It could have been Bernie. It could have been anybody. They would have beat Trump. They picked the
Mark
Democrat.
O'Malley probably would have won too.
Yeah.
Jeb Bush could have run as a Democrat and beat Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a dodo, but he could have done it. I think they put anybody in there, they would have beat him. So yeah, this is going to be kind of a field day. I think there's a lot of lessons that were learned on this particular presidential election and how the campaigns were run, especially. And I think they've learned some lessons, some very valuable on both sides of that political fence. And I think we're up for a pretty good campaign in the next presidential election.
Either way, I still have my Colombian citizenship, and I can move to Bogota.
I'm happy that you have that. I don't. So
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm here. I need to fight for this stupid country. But that's another thing we learned. We learned it for both parties is that both of these they're private clubs. So when we saw what happened in the DNC, it was shocking, but they're allowed to do whatever they want. So I think another thing we saw is that the parties themselves, I think, are starting to lose their hold. I know there's a lot of people that are pissed right now at third-party voters, but I didn't have a choice. Neither one of them I could give my vote to. And I think there's more people that are sitting on the sidelines that might be willing to jump in to fight the two-party system at this point, because first of all, it's not our system. Our system is not designed for Democrats and Republicans.
Our government was founded on the basis that we wouldn't have a party system. That was the whole point.
Totally. And we don't have to. The way the Electoral College works, we don't have to vote Democrat and Republican. And so, I don't know. We'll see if we get some more independence this time, but what we're doing ain't working.
No.
That's all I know.
Well, very cool. That was an absolutely fantastic list. That was
this was a list podcast. Oh, I forgot. I thought we were just talking.
We didn't rant.
No, but this has been fantastic. No, it's nice that we get to go and sidebar off on these conversations, even though we're not traditionally a political podcast by any means.
Nope.
Matter of fact, I think the last 4 you have done nothing but show how much smarter you are than 3 of us combined when it comes to this.
I'm not. I pay attention to stuff other people don't.
Yeah, no, we go to beaches and get drunk. Like that's all we do, and
that's all I do. I just got back from Mexico.
That's right.
You probably noticed I've been eating my lip. It's because I burned it so badly it's falling off. Like beach bum, beer drinking, but I just watch C-SPAN instead of Netflix.
You humble yourself a little bit, but your ability. So from our perspective, it's easy to tell when a guest host comes in with literally a list to read from versus a list that they have topics written down, but that they talk about, and you can hear their brain working to relate what's going on with the particular topics of the list. You rattled off all that information just so elegantly. Your topics, and it makes that list that much better because you know your information, and that's a really, really good part about this is we can kind of judge the guests too based on how they do, and you nailed it. It was really entertaining.
Oh, thank you.
You gave Dan Cummins a run for his money. I'm just saying.
I was about to say, I think you and him have so far been the 2 most knowledgeable on the topics that you brought. Absolutely.
Oh, good.
Hey, I know a lot about those infomercials.
We're not going there.
Which are infomercials?
Andrea did an episode of Twisted 10 called the top 10 best and worst infomercial products, and we had audio to go with it. It's so far that is my favorite episode of the Twisted 10 that we've ever had. But
I'm gonna go back and listen to that. I love those things.
Yeah, I do too. I want them all the time. I want all of them. I need all of them. Let me rephrase that.
So I actually used to work at the hotel where Nick Offer had his tongue bitten off by the prostitute on South Beach. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, I was working that day.
Laser Bond would have fixed it.
Fun times.
Laser Bond. Jesus.
Oh
As he used a ShamWow to pick up the blood off the floor.
Exactly.
Well, we know who should be doing your ads.
Exactly. All right, so let's get some plugs out of the way for you. I did a little bit already, but take it away. What would you like our listeners to do to either support you or to go download or to send money or listen? Well, take away whatever you want to do for your plugs.
Well, I would really like people to just try out Congressional Dish. I try not to be partisan because I hate everyone, as you've heard. And, and yeah, my whole point is to just get more people aware of what Congress is doing in your name and try and figure out some way to fix it. And that's the hard part. But yeah, the podcast is called Congressional Dish. You can find it everywhere that Twisted 10 is found, anywhere a podcast is found. I also have a free app for Androids and iPhones because I think the most important thing that I do is I don't expect you to trust a word that comes out of my mouth. And so my show notes are very detailed. You can read every article I use. If I outline a bill, I actually link to the individual provisions so that you can read the pieces of legislation yourself. I make sure that I back up every single thing that I say because we live in the era of fake news. So I don't want to BS you, and sometimes I'm going to make mistakes. So, but yeah, I'm just trying to tell you about Congress, and I think I make it pretty fun. I try to. And yeah, it's called Congressional Dish, congressionaldish.com.
Yeah, it's awesome that you took a topic that's so polarizing and you just made it accessible. And with no motives, you're not trying to boost one side over the other one. It's just, hey, here's the link. Look it up.
Yep.
Have fun with it. And if you doubt me, come fight me, bro.
And some of it is self-preservation because that has happened where someone will be like, you're wrong. And I'll be like, here's the link. And I never hear from them again.
It's so vindicating, isn't it? It's vindicating to get that feeling.
Yeah, people don't really mess with me unless they actually know I'm wrong. And they know that if I'm wrong, I will on like the next episode that I find it out. There's been quite a few that I've had to start and be like, so I messed up, guys. Sorry. And then I explain what the mistake was, but I always do it right up front. So that's another motivation for me not to screw it up because I have to do it and like eat that shit sandwich.
So this is the part of the episode where I eat a crow.
Yeah. I'm sorry I swear so much too. I'm a trucker.
We get every single episode.
I'm a literal trucker, so that works out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that insulting?
No, not at all.
No, all of our episodes go out explicit just in case. And trust me, some of our topics have been very, very over that line. So don't worry. The cussing is perfectly fine. In fact, I respect you more because you cuss.
This is one of the cleanest episodes we've ever done.
Now, that's a good point. If I do hear in your episodes that your editing team or you do bleep out your words, if you need me to do that on Twisted 10, just let me for your image, just let me know and I'll go and bleep out.
It's not an image. image thing. I don't care what people think. It's a I can't be in India or China and a couple other countries if it's marked explicit. And you should know that too. If you're explicit in any of your episodes, you're not allowed in their iTunes store. So that's why I do it. It's
Interesting.
Because there's people that vote all over the world.
So to close off the show with all
that's
those
true.
nuggets, it's not wise.
No,
So
you
that's
just
why I do
educated me
it.
on that. I had no idea.
I didn't even consider that. I'm a
No
Colombian
wonder
citizen.
no one's listening to us in China.
Yeah.
And
No,
India.
but I'm a Colombian citizen. I vote for Colombian politics all the time. And it didn't even occur to me that there were like expats in other countries that are doing the same thing.
Yeah. And that's why I picked the golf swing too, because like with the big two, when you say like fuck and shit, like the golf swing finishes it, you know? So it's like shit.
Yeah, yep.
So that's why I picked it. Like, you know what I'm saying.
Perfect.
And my editors worked really hard on getting the first syllable, so you actually know what I'm saying, but it's still technically beeped.
So yeah, we've been working on it for years.
Way to usurp the system. Way to go.
All right. Well, very cool. So this episode is Congressional Dish Jen Briney's episode. We had a lot of fun with you. Next time you're down this way, let us know. Between Tach and myself, we might be able to get some passes out to NASA out here at Kennedy Space Center. Next time you come down this way, we're going to take Dan Cummins out there if he's got time. He's going to be down here June 12th. He's stopping in studio with us to hang out for an episode. So if you ever make it down here, let us know. I'd like to say we made a friend out of you today.
And I work at a salon and spa, so you can come in, massage, pedicure, hairdo, body scrub.
I work for an auto manufacturer. I can give you discounts on a new car. That's about all I got.
Hey, that works too. My car was just dead in my space last night. It's 16 years old. So I might take all of you up on those offers. So yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll be there in February for Podfest. So
Nice.
I will be coming back.
Yes.
All right. Well, very cool.
Or if we have a hurricane coming.
Yeah, then I'll be on the next plane.
There you go.
Most people don't realize when you want to travel to Florida, come during a hurricane. Air prices drop.
Yeah, dirt cheap.
So bad.
Yeah.
We were supposed to get hit when I went in August, and it just like missed Miami. It like brushed and then disappeared. I was so
Oh,
mad.
yeah. Was that this year? Like Matthew?
No, it's 2 years ago. Something like that.
Yeah, that's when everybody was posting the memes of the lawn chair pushed over, like Hurricane Tim, never forget. We will
Yep, that was the
rebuild.
one.
Yeah.
Total dud.
All right, well, very cool. We'll wrap up the episode. For our listeners, obviously, we'll have the show links. In the show notes will be all the links to Jen's podcast and some of her social media and her website. So go check that out. Give her a 5-star on iTunes, rate and review her, obviously, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. For us, go visit facebook.com/thetwisted10. Also, give us those 5-star ratings and reviews. Jen, we got lucky enough. We barely broke into the top 100 comedy podcasts with this show.
For like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't long, but we got it. We were in there long enough to screenshot it at number 99. So we're begging for those ratings. I don't know how they do it, how iTunes does it, what algorithm they use, but we're trying the ratings and reviews.
If you want to know.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's done by new subscriptions. So it's like, it's rated over 7 days. So it's like, it's like the first 3 days are the most important. And then as it fades out, it goes away. But like that top 100 is all about new subscriptions. And there's a second list that they have that's more like how many active subscribers you have. But yeah, getting up into that thing, it's all about subscriptions, which is why you'll see yourself there for like a minute and then it disappears.
Yeah, it was a hot minute. We were at 99, which is the highest we climbed. Dropped down to about 150, and then we were gone, and we haven't seen it back since then. So, damn it! But we got that.
One too. I took the screenshot. I was like, I'm big time, and I've never been big time again.
That's awesome. Damn, we're gonna have a lot
That
of.
was like 2.5 years ago. It was a long time.
We're gonna have a lot of our podcasters listening just for the how do you make that top rankings. That's a cool. Thank you for explaining that. I've looked and looked and looked, and I couldn't find that online. So.
Well, Rob Walsh of Libsyn is the one that actually knows in real words how to explain that. You guys should listen to his podcast. It's called The Feed, and it's designed to keep you podcasting. So that's how you learn all these details. So it's the one podcast about podcasting I actually listen to.
Nice. I've listened to Entrepreneur on Fire for a while. It's pretty good. Used to be good. It's more commercial now, but all right. Anyway, well, very cool. Thank you for coming on board tonight. We had a blast. That was an awesome episode. Do you guys have any more questions for Jen, or we good?
We're good.
That was just fun stuff.
Jen, do you have any more questions for us for anything?
No, just if you guys ever want to talk again, I had so much fun. I will do this anytime.
Heck yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
I wish I could invite you on mine, but like it's a solo.
Yeah, it's a solo show.
Lonely thing.
I would like to extend an invite to you, and obviously we'll talk offline about it for dates in the future, but we record every Monday night, usually for both of our shows, Living Podcariously and The Twisted 10, and I would love to have you on to talk a little bit of like a political corner type of once in a while to get, the insider information on it. It's not a political show, but your comedy spin on politics is perfect for it. So maybe we can call you up and do something. All right, cool.
Yeah, anytime. I'm really accessible. So.
See, the trick is, guys, with a celebrity podcaster, you get her to say it on the podcast, and that locks her in. So she's guaranteed. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not as no.
You are to us. No. You are to us. And I appreciate you responding back for that. That was cool to come on board.
Nice of you to say, but like no.
You are to
I'm in
us.
my living room. Celebrities aren't in their living room.
Well, Mark Maron does it in his garage.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm jealous of his garage.
I'm like, oh my God, seriously, I guess.
One of the only garages in the U.S. that has had President Obama in it. Just saying.
But does it have a Lincoln bust?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure.
Did you hear that? That was so subtle of a joke, but it was so good. All right. That was awesome. All right, we're going to get out of here. Listeners, be sure to go click the links in the show notes and subscribe. 5-star rating, review, like, the whole 9 yards. Share it with your friends. And for our other show, we're going to announce it on here as well. July 7th at 7 p.m., Village Idiot Pub in Cocoa Village is going to be our Living Podcariously listener event. So we'll plug that shamelessly here too, because they're both our shows. I guess that's it. I'm Adam.
I'm Jay Alvarez.
And I'm Andrea Joy.
And our guest host of the evening,
I'm Jen Briney.
We appreciate you guys listening. Thank you so much and have a great week. Peace.
Wait. Don't hit stop on the episode just yet. Hey, this is Tach from the podcast you just listened to. And if you enjoy Living Podcariously or The Twisted 10, then you're going to love my new podcast I co-host with my lifelong buddy, Ron Caniff. It's called You're 40, Now What? It's about the trials and tribulations of turning 40 and just getting through life. So check it out on iTunes, Google Play Music, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thanks. Now go give someone a mouth hug.
Hey guys, it's Adam. I want to take a moment and personally thank you for listening to our shows, for downloading our shows, and for sharing them with your friends. With your guys' support, we just moved the Twisted 10 into the threshold of the top 100 comedy shows in iTunes. It made it to number 99, granted, just barely crept in there. However, that's still monumental for us. Out of the tens of thousands of podcasts that are out there, that's one of the most difficult categories to breach into. Thank you very, very much for helping us to get there. If you haven't already done so, please go give us a 5-star rating and give us a review, a short little 1-line, 2-line review, letting us know that you enjoy the show. iTunes reviews are like podcast currency. It legitifies the show, it allows us to get better guests, and it allows our sponsors to really see that we're reaching the listeners that are out there. If you haven't done so yet, please go do it. We would greatly appreciate it. We've got a ton on the horizon from Dichotomy Media, a lot more on our YouTube channel, more Get Out Penny cartoons, all sorts of stuff. So please help us by giving us that 5-star rating and a little review. Thank you very much and enjoy the show.
TMRS 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All 3 engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You're listening to The Twisted 10, bringing you original and unique, host-created top 10 lists, recorded live in world-famous Cocoa Beach, Florida, with hosts Tach Van Sickle and Adam Poston.
All right, welcome to another episode of The Twisted 10. I am Adam, and Jay and Andrea, I'm not a host this week. I'm just saying. I'm off the hook again. I did mine last week, so I'm now off.
You're off the hook for like a year.
Yeah, at least.
Wait, so does that mean it's my turn again?
Is it your turn?
I don't think so. I have nothing prepared. Yeah, Jay Alvarez, the Hispanic that's not prepared. Way to live a stereotype, myself.
Hi, I'm Andrea Joy, and I am also not hosting this show.
So our hosts here in the studio can see on our big screen over on the other side of the room that we have a guest host this week.
That's how it is with a lot of podcasters. We fall in and out of love with it. I think Amanda said that to you guys a few weeks ago. And right now I'm on a down slope, but it's starting to turn around just because, I don't know. It's my job.
We all ebb and flow, that's for sure. So out of the three of us, I consider myself somewhat politically knowledgeable. I wouldn't say very much, but a little bit. I've worked for government contracts since 2002, DOD, DOS, and now here at NASA. And I get myself at least attached to, that's my day job, not the podcast. The podcast doesn't pay those bills. I'm just saying. So the day job covers that. So I know a little bit about my specific areas of interest, like the $600 million extra dollars that NASA just got from this current administration. I was stoked to hear that because I'm a fanboy of NASA, so that's good for me. But I don't know if I've ever asked Jay if he's political or not in here.
Yeah, actually, I have a very solid educational background in politics. I have watched the entire series of The West Wing. As well as House of Cards. So I feel myself particularly versed for this episode.
It's like an honorary doctorate for that, right?
Right. From University of Phoenix.
University of Netflix?
Yes. Yep, that's exactly where.
But here's the real test from what I've heard. Do you watch Veep?
Ooh. No, I'm behind on that. I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I'm behind on it, though.
You need to watch Veep.
All right, you know what it is? I can't get past, what's the guy, her assistant, the one that was on Arrested Development.
Arrested Development.
Because I can't see him and not picture him in Army. Like that's all I got.
He still plays Buster. So you don't actually have to let that go. He's basically still Buster.
So he's Buster. He's like, okay, so these are my awards from Vice President. Okay, cool. Got it.
Yeah. No, you have to watch that one. And it's funny because people will write to me from Washington and they tell me it's more Veep than anything else. Which I don't think that's a good thing, but it doesn't exactly surprise me.
Andrea, what about you? Are you political in nature? I know personally, but our listeners may not. Do you have a knowledge in politics or?
Yeah, it's not enough.
Enough?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Tach is our other host that's not here tonight. He's actually he works for SpaceX, and they just launched, literally when we were doing our initial test phone calls with you tonight, SpaceX was the obvious easy targets that are out there. That's good.
Yeah, and I think it actually hurts the show.
Really?
Like conversation. But the people who have found Congressional Dish do seem to like it because whatever the big story is on TV, a lot of times that big story is covering up what they're actually doing in legislation, which is far more important and affects us all, especially financially in so many ways. And so yeah, I'm happy to be doing the podcast, even though right now it is nothing but bad news. So
I listened to your last episode, which dealt with North Korea and some of the conflicts with the DMZ, with South Korea, North Korea, China, obviously the ties in with Russia and, everything else, and obviously Trump. And it was fascinating to me. You educated. I thought I knew a pretty good amount about politics and pretty good amount about the North Korea situation, but I learned a hell of a lot on that show. And I listened all the way to the very end, even with your credits to your listeners, your patrons, your donators, things like that. And I admire how you did that. You treated every single one of those people elegantly, and it made me want to donate too. It was an interesting perspective that you took on it. So that was kind of cool. But you did say something in that episode towards the end where you were frustrated. It sounded like you were on the fence about the podcast in general. I'm like, oh no, because you were glooming on it a little bit. I'm like, damn, you need reinforcement that you're doing a really good job. And, without kissing your ass too much, I love that show, and you've got something that's really, really cool, and you're doing something good. But you can't read those bills until they're passed. I'm just saying. You don't know what's in the bill. Just pass it first, and then we'll tell you. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Well, and, I do have to, I'm a little bit, I'm tired right now. It's been a very high emotion 6 months since Trump took office. And a lot of people are lashing out because I didn't wholeheartedly support Hillary Clinton. Apparently that makes me a traitor to my gender or something crazy. I don't know.
How dare you?
But
are we sure she's
really
a woman?
Difficult. It really has. And just watching the way Congress is behaving, and it's just, I don't know. It's been rough on me emotionally, to be honest. And I'm going to keep going with the podcast, but am I like at my peak motivation right now? Like, no. And I think that's...
And joining us, and we're honored to have her, is Jen Briney with Congressional Dish podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun to host another show than my own with actual human beings interacting with me. This is going to be great.
Right. It's a weird concept. A lot of other podcasters don't, it's hard for some of them to grasp the concept that it's, do I just send you my MP3 file? You know, how does this work? I'm like, no, we interact with each other. It's an exchange. It's, you know, we like having guests come in studio in here, but to open it up wider, we do the Skype connections like we're doing with you. So thank you again. Thank you very, very much for coming on board. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about Congressional Dish and what that podcast is? I know it, but our listeners may not.
Yeah. So Congressional Dish, I started about 4.5 years ago because, well, long story short, I was paying attention to C-SPAN. I was like one of those 3 people that watches that in their free time. And I just saw shady things happening. And so I was paying attention more and more. And I was like, there's so much happening in Congress that actually affects me. And I don't even know where to find this information. And so after a long talk with my dad, who went into a career that was not all that fun, he was an accountant, he was like, I don't know what a podcast is or why anyone would want to listen to a podcast about Congress, but I'll support you in any way I can. So I started it like 4.5 years ago with the naive idea that I could read every bill that passed. So I was like, if Congress can read it, I can read it. And it turns out they don't read most of the bills. So I learned by doing, to tell you the truth. This was my podcast that I was just going to learn what was going on and tell people what I was finding. And so now that it's been so long, I've changed the structure a little bit, but really the basic idea is I'm a taxpayer. I'm not in either of the main 2 parties. I just want to do it. I just want to know what they're doing with my money and in my name. And that's still what I'm doing. So it's like whatever rabbit hole I choose to go down, that's what your next episode is about. And I still read obnoxious pieces of legislation, and I watch hearings, and I just share with you whatever I think needs to be shared, and mainly the stuff that's not covered in the mainstream. You know what I mean? Because like right now I could cover Jim Comey along with everyone else in the world, but there's also other things going on. So I kind of go for the stuff that I think is being hidden.
Oh, that's cool. That's a very unique angle to take. So you're not taking the things that are launching one of their rockets. So he's up there supporting that mission tonight. So he's out of commission for us this evening. He wanted to be here very badly because he loves your podcast too. So he's missing out. So sorry, Tach.
Wow.
Sorry, buddy.
It's a good reason to miss the podcast. He's only, expanding human knowledge and exploration. It's like, you can do that instead of talking to me.
And I love how dismissive you are. Like, yeah, SpaceX is launching one of their rockets. Like, yeah, Timmy's playing with one of his toys again. That's
It is kind of cool. SpaceX, not to get too tied into this, but I'm kind of a fanboy of it. SpaceX launches their rockets, and a couple of them come back and land on the pads here at KSC at the Air Force Station side. Well, those are the reusable rockets that they can use over and over and over, and they're like drones that come and land. Well, it's very reminiscent of the space shuttle days because those things create 2 sonic booms that are heard for hundreds of miles in every direction. And we're so close here, when those booms hit, all of our windows and doors shake. It is just intense, and I love it. I love it every single time. It doesn't scare me anymore because I'm such a fanboy. I know when all the launches are, but I want to let our listeners know real quick for new listeners that may be coming to this podcast because of Jen. This podcast is a top 10 list podcast. The top 10 list is either done by one of our regular hosts, the 4 of us, or by a guest, like in Jen's case here. The list has to be something original or unique to you. So you can't go on like David Letterman's site and pull some of his top 10 lists and bring it to the show. It has to be something unique. Now, you can cite sources, obviously, like I was inspired by a BuzzFeed top 10 list or something else that you found on Wikipedia or whatever. You can cite them if you want to, not necessary. However, we want them to be original. And we occasionally allow guests to come on, more so regularly allow than as of late. We allow guests to come on like Jen and bring their own lists. And they take over the show for the entire hour. And that's what we're going to do tonight. So, Jen, are you ready to go? Are you good?
I think so.
All right. Well, we're turning over the proverbial keys to this car over to you for the rest of this episode. So this is Jen Briney's top 10 list. So let us know what your list is, and then it's all your show.
All right. So the list I went with, which probably won't surprise anyone who knows what I do for a living, is top 10 Congressional Scandals.